Good evening, everyone. It's lovely to see you all again for our second guided walk. Now, this whole episode was going to be the guided walk until the snow turned up the other day. So we've got a lovely section on that too. Dad's pretty proud of what he's produced for it, which is pretty cool to see. So, without further ado, Dad, over to you.
Okay, so one of the things that came out today, and it's been a really powerful element today. You stop licking me, please. No
Co-host.
licky. No,
He wants too
the
much
host
attention.
But anyway, the sun came out today. Now, it doesn't matter how much you like being out in the rain. It doesn't matter how much you've got really good kit and you can get out of the wind and you can be well wrapped up. And it doesn't matter how much you like breathing really clean air. It's still, when the sun comes out, the whole world changes. And that was amazing today when the sun came out. And that just put me in mind of a poem. It's a poem written by a fella called Hafiz in the Middle Ages, quite a while ago. And I'm going to read it to you. Just listen to this, it's superb. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens when with a love like that, it lights the whole sky. I'm just going to read that again because it's a very powerful poem. It says, even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. And I think the message is, be like the sun. The sun lights everywhere and always has done and always will do. It's not picky about where it lights up. It doesn't go where it feels loved. It doesn't go where it feels the favorite. It lights up everywhere. Can you imagine if the sun only lit up the places that it liked? And we'd have people doing their best to praise the sun god or whatever, or whoever. And we'd have dark wars. But that doesn't happen. The sun just gets on with lighting up every single person's world. And that's a pretty powerful concept. Which leads us really nicely to the morning routine section. This is books part 2. You know, we've talked about giving gratitude, appreciating the things that we have. You know, instead of going, if you're a really skillful artist, for example, instead of going around and bragging about how good you are, it's about giving gratitude for the skills that you possess. Yeah, that's really cool. About the exercises that keep the body moving and keep it fluid, keep it in balance. And I'm going to have another one at the end of that. I've just found some exercise routine based on the ancient Chinese principle of Qigong. And I'm just getting my head around it at the moment. And it's really powerful stuff. So I'm going to slot that one in a little bit later. And then last week, we looked at the everyday nature. And I was going to read a section out of that today, but I think we're going to be a little tight on time. So we're going to just focus on this book. This book's been mentioned before. It's by a fellow called Wayne Dyer, and it's called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And there are 88 essays in this book. And they're all titles, for example, Living from Greatness, Living Naturally, Living with Flexibility, Living the Elusive Paradox. It's where all those things that a lot of the things that I've mentioned about the duality of the world, about things creating and dying, about being what you are, the difference between, if you like, every creature on this planet has a soul, almost a plant almost has soul, has a heartbeat. Animals have a soul. They have that spark that gives them life. The difference being is that none of them have an ego to go with it. All of those different thoughts that we have come from that book. And it is an amazing way for just dealing with the anxieties that we have about understanding the connection we have with life. And because there's 88 essays in it, what I'm doing with it is I look at an essay through the week. It's about 2.5, 3 pages long. And I sit there and whatever burns out of me from those 2 or 3 pages is what I then go on and meditate about afterwards. And it isn't, there's no doubt about it, the title is absolutely true. If you change your thoughts, you will change your life. And at the end of the day, we're only here for a short time. It's about being happy, and it's about being in control of your own happiness. And that's really powerful. So, be like the sun. On the topic of being like the sun, and there being duality and yin and yang, and having had the weather we've just had, which has been amazing. We actually went out on Sunday and we just enjoyed the sun, and we took some video.
Enjoyed the sun. Do you mean enjoyed the snow?
That's what I meant.
Enjoyed
Begins with S. We enjoyed the snow. We didn't see any sun on Sunday. It was a Sunday anyway. So we're going to show you the video. 2 things. One, I apologise for my unruly glove.
He doesn't normally wear them. It's only when the snow comes out that he puts gloves on.
And second, if you keep your eyes open, we caught some great little footage of a fox. Anyway, so here we go. Enjoy this.
We thought that was pretty cool.
We're biased.
We might be biased, but we really enjoy going out in the snow. Since last time we had snow that deep, I must have only been 12 or 13. It's been a fair few years since we've had that depth of snow. Now, on the topic of snow as well, after that amazing video, we've got a couple of pictures to share with you as well. Um, two of them are from that day, and the other two are from last night's snow, when me and a few friends, we decided we were going to go and completely outdo the snowman there that decided we wanted to fall over after about 2 minutes. Now, I just saw these pictures and I thought we have to include them because they are just brilliant pictures. And that's in the estate just behind our house, which is only a half an hour walk away. And in the summer, that lake doesn't exist. In the summer, that is just dry land that is used for sheep. But in the winter, it just turns into a really nice little lake.
You've probably seen that view featured in several of our videos. It's one of our favorite places, and it's a place where we just tend to naturally gravitate to when we want to shoot things. And if you can see on the right side there's one of the most beautiful hawthorn trees.
And this is the other side, so pretty much where you just were, turn around and this is what you look at. And there used to be a tyre swing just a little bit further down on the tree on the right. You can just about see this one here. And I remember all through my childhood, I used to spend every time I walked through the estate, go on a tyre swing, but sadly it's not there anymore. So I can't relive my childhood every time I go down there. And talking of snowmen, that one we built was only about 4 foot. Well, after last night's snow, this one was about 6.5 foot, and we were pretty proud of it. It took us the best part of the 3 or 4 hours to finally get it built, but Jess and Gary and myself, we did a great job, and we had a great time doing it. Although we did actually have the head collapse about 10 minutes before we were meant to put it on top, so then we had to quickly scrabble around and rebuild it, which was great fun. So there's a bit of snow for you. Now, going from snow to what this show is all about this week is the guided walk. Now, this week's guided walk is around Kearsley Abbey in the Ilkham Valley. And we started in Kearsley Abbey, we parked in the car park. So why not tell you a little bit about Kearsley Abbey before we get going? So I'll tell you a bit of history about it and a little bit about the grounds as well. And the history of Kearsley Abbey, they can trace it as far back as the Norman Conquest. There's not a specific date. They cannot find a specific date or any kind of paperwork or anything that can link it to a certain time, but they know it was around the Norman Conquest. It was purchased by a gentleman called John Fector, who was a merchant and he was also a banker back in 1790. Now, considering what house prices are today, to go and buy land back then, to buy Kearsley Abbey cost him £72,000. And you don't get that anymore for £72,000. You're probably looking at millions these days with inflation and all of that.
Half a flat.
Yeah, half a flat. And he also decided then he was going to build a grand mansion. Now, the grand mansion took 2 years to build between 1820 and 1822. But what's interesting about it, it's called Kearsley Abbey, but there's no abbey.
I don't think there ever has been an abbey, has there?
Never has been an abbey. It is just called Kearsley Abbey with no abbey. It'll be interesting. Right, yeah. Let's get on to part one before we start waffling about abbeys.
Yes. Onwards.
Onwards and upwards.
Part one.
That one. Down the road, and if you want to do this walk, you park in Kearsley Abbey car park, and then turn right at the end of the car park on the main road, come along about 100 yards, and on the left is a turn, and you'll see the sign for Scotland Common. When you get to that, go up the track, and keep going.
is delicate fern moss covering the whole of this lower trunk almost, but you kind of catch your eye on it because it's a completely different standout colour to the rest of the tree. Again, it shows that this is quite often a very, very damp area. Mosses always like to grow where they've got lots of water. They attach themselves to these trees, generally on the side where the sun sees the least. And you can actually use a fern on a tree to give you some sense of direction if you're lost. Come on. One of the beauties of going out for a walk in the woods is you find some massive, big tree specimens. Behind me is a big beech tree, and we noticed it from the path. It's funny, I saw the tree, and Ross saw the rope swing. So anyway, have a look around you when you go out. So this is soft shield fern, or as you and I probably more readily call it, bracken. But it's an amazingly simple plant that's been the same way for eons. You know, this bracken was here when the dinosaurs were roaming the earth, is how successful it's been. And one of the reasons that it's so successful is that it actually emits a poison into the ground, therefore eliminating all of its competitors. So quite often when you find this fern, you find an awful lot of it because it doesn't allow anything to take up the space that it wants. So there you go, dinosaur age plants.
Up Scotland Common, and you've got past the cottages and coming on the trail a little bit more. There's a fork in the path. Now what you want to do is you want to take the right path, because the one on the left is used as a byway for off-road vehicles like motorbikes and 4x4s.
So after about 200 yards, you're going to see these yellow arrows on your left-hand side. There's the one that's just on my right, and then there's another one a little bit further down. They're just showing you where the footpath is. Follow that track. Eventually you'll reach a silver kissing gate. Behind it is the most amazing example of a hazel, which is absolutely full of catkins. When you go past the kissing gate, walk heartedly into the view you can see behind me.
So once you've gone across that field and you get to this kissing gate, and what you don't want to do at this kissing gate is follow the Kersley Loop. Now Kersley Loop goes down the hill and takes you to the farm. What you want to do is follow the track to the right, which I'm about to show you. Just down here. This takes you along to Orkham Valley and it takes you to the kennels. Now the kennels will show you where to go from there. Now, after later parts of the video, you'll see why the Kersley Loop is better, but we'll get to that. Now, what's interesting about this walk is was actually my auntie's birthday, the couple of days after we went and filmed this. So on the way home, we stopped off and stood on their driveway and dropped off her birthday present and card. And we were talking about the walk because we've done it in the past quite a lot because they like going out on long walks and we like going out on long walks. So we sometimes go together when we're allowed to. And when we were there, we reminded her of the fact of, yeah, it's the log that you fell on, Dad, because there's a log in the middle of it where you've got to get over the top of it, and she completely squished Dad. And she went, oh yeah, that walk. Well, we went there not that long ago, and we saw an adder. So here is the picture of the adder that they saw. Now, there is the actual adder. That's not one we've just pinched from somewhere else. That is the photo she sent me. And you can tell it's an adder because of the diamond ridges on its back. And you can just about see it, it zigzags all the way down the back of the body. Now, because of that, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about adders. Now, the adder in this country is the only venomous snake. It is the only one that can ever bite you and give you, well, put venom in you. But the likelihood of getting bitten by an adder is so low. You're probably never going to get bitten by one. The likelihood of actually seeing an adder at the same time is also really, really tricky because adders themselves love heathland, woodland, and moorland. But
the chances are actually that they'll actually see you coming first and get out of your way, because the last thing they actually want to do is bite you. So unless you're kind of like corner one, then you're pretty safe for the most part.
But the adder is one of 3 snakes in the UK. So in the UK, you have the adder, the grass snake, and the smooth snake. But what's interesting as well is they're found in the UK apart from Ireland. There's no adders in Ireland. Not entirely sure why, but there are just none in Ireland. They're only over here with England, Scotland, and Wales. But the other thing that is really, really odd, and when I was kind of looking into a little bit more about adders, they're the most northerly snake you can find because they've been found near the Arctic Circle. How cold does it have to be for a snake to want to decide it wants to live in the Arctic Circle?
Especially when they're kind of cold-blooded and they need the sun to warm them up to have enough energy to actually do anything.
It's a very strange subject because you would never associate Arctic Circle and adder, or any snake for that matter. But they've been found and recorded in the past with photo evidence and forms and parts of portfolio that have found adders in the Arctic Circle. It's really interesting, I thought. I thought that was quite a nice little touch of unique knowledge as such. But the sad thing about adders is the numbers are starting to decline in the UK. That is really almost sad to see because all of the places they like going, heathland, moorland, and woodland, are slowly being taken away and their habitat is being destroyed slowly. I mean, it's not just the UK, they're declining in the UK, but their numbers are dropping very, very slowly all around the world. And that's because of the habitat. Now, a couple of things in the chat, which I will just read. The only time I've seen an adder was as a child on the Sussex Downs with my granddad. It was sunning itself on a rock. Yeah, they live for getting in the sun, and that's what they enjoy. So I'm still amazed that it was in the Arctic Circle. But
funny enough, the only time that I can actually remember myself actually seeing one was in Russell Gardens, which is just over the road from Kersney Abbey, and it was actually swimming across one of the lakes over there, which was kind of like, well, I mean, I hadn't thought about whether it could swim or not, but the fact that it was meant that they obviously do.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen grass snakes a lot, and I've only ever seen one adder in real life, and the one I saw was when we were actually, I think it was doing the Ridgeway at the time, and we were walking up this trail with 2 banks either side of us, and suddenly this thing was in the bank, and I think we woke it up and it shot off, and I got to see the diamond back as it launched itself into the field and ran away. And another one as well, we used to have and see loads when I was at school in the Isle of Wight in Bembridge. I recall one kid pulling a juvenile adder out of his blazer pocket in the middle of biology class, ended up in a bottle in the biology lab as a warning to future students. I've never quite seen that before.
No.
Well, that's definitely something you're never going to forget, seeing a juvenile adder in a bottle inside your school. I mean, we had some great fun in school, but I don't think we ever got that far with it. We did also have some snakeskin that was kept in, what are they called? The airtight containers. So that's the one.
Vacuum sealed containers.
And we use them quite a lot, but I've never quite had anything like that happen.
Anyway, moving swiftly onwards.
Yeah, we better get on to part 2 of the walk.
The entertaining bit. You're going to enjoy this. We did have some fun. In fact, the tree that my aunt fell over and landed on me
my aunt.
Your aunt, my sister. My sister actually was probably the least of, or the easiest of the obstacles we had to surmount. As you'll see, it's something about my family. My mother did it to me on a holiday in Yorkshire as well. Climbed over a stile and decided I should be her soft landing spot when she fell off it. And my mother possibly wasn't the lightest person on the planet. Anyway, here we go. Kersney Abbey Walk, part 2.
Probably just see behind me. We suddenly saw this sheep in the barn. So we put the dogs on the lead, because even though they're pretty well behaved and we don't actually think they're noticed, better safe than sorry.
Now, this plant here, this is gorse. Gorse itself should be flowering about now in the dull winter. But as you can see with this one, it started flowering early. I'm not complaining because those bright, vibrant yellow colours always help out with those dull winter days. Really nice to see everything. That's the weird thing this year is everything is out of place. Everything's out of order. Everything's flowering at different times. All the birds are starting to chirp their songs a little bit early. Who knows why?
Follow the road, you'll go past several cottages, and then you'll come to this footpath on the left-hand side of the road. Cross over the stile and follow the field. Yeah. Go over now. Where we just crossed that stile, it's actually a bit of a scramble. They haven't cleared the track for a long time. So if you're feeling you don't want to go climbing through what's effectively holly and prickly, then if you carry straight on along the road where we stopped and came over the stile, you'll get to a junction, turn left, down the hill. Having just negotiated a large fallen tree and just about managed not to slide down a slope on my bottom, it's probably recommended that if you don't wish to battle with holly, climb trees, strip down slopes, that you carry on along the road and turn left. But the path comes out on that same road, and now we've reached it, we're going to turn left, going downhill. As you can see, take care crossing the Auckland Valley Road because the cars do whistle through. front of their head. This one's enjoying much more of a home than possibly ever had previously, because normally this would be a field. But they're funny birds, because when you actually see them out of the water, they've got these huge feet, which are really good for spreading their weight and allowing them to walk across lily pads. So next time you're out and you're at a lake and there's coots, see if you can see one walking across water, almost. So, you'll probably be aware that through January we've had a fair amount of rain. And behind me, our next obstacle is the River Dower, which has, to say the least, burst its banks. We're right in the valley, and much as it is spectacularly beautiful, we've now got to try and work out how to get over here with two dogs, one of whom is not anywhere as nimble as the other. We'll see you on the other side. So here we are, the two of us and two dogs safely across the River Dower, albeit one of us has wet feet.
My feet are dry. I just want to clarify, I have dry feet. Once you've crossed the treacherous river and you've come up to the summit of the vertical slope, when you get to this junction, you want to take the left turn and keep going up the hill.
So we come out from the woods on the banks of the Auckland Valley, and the terrain, the countryside actually changes quite dramatically. We've gone from that rugged, tree-lined, featured natural valley to what's effectively a flat, and if it wasn't for the trees and the hedgerows, a featureless landscape, which is Barbed. So, eventually, that footpath will meet a road. When you get to the road, turn left, and as you get to the corner, where the road goes round to the right, take the footpath, which is by now virtually straight on. As you can see, this is a little bit overgrown. We've had to move brambles, we've had to pick dogs up, we've had to climb fallen trees. But you know what, it's part of the fun. But it is one of those things that you have to be careful with when you're walking. But I tell you, we've got what we're calling an at-ack, an all-terrain attack chihuahua, because he's got through everything. Well done, little fella.
So, one of the things that was rather entertaining about the walk at this point is this is where we met a very homemade sign that said, "Footpath is closed."
Halfway down the track.
And we were kind of in that rock and a hard place thing because it really was a scramble getting down from that path we showed you at the top to where we got out onto the field. And it had taken us probably 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. And if we'd have been anything less than nimble, enthusiastic, occasionally to the point of stupidity, we probably would have already given up. In fact, when we saw my sister, they had actually had the sign up at the road. And so they hadn't even ventured down the track. But that was gone at the time. So we've got to the point there and we're like, if we turn around, we've got to go uphill as well as scrambling through. And so we ummed and ahed and we thought, well, we're just going to go along the side of the field, which is ultimately what we did.
What we have got to show you is what you should see if a footpath is closed.
So
this image here, this is what you should. This is what you should see when a footpath is closed, and if one of them is up, then it has been shut legally, and it has been shut properly and professionally. If you see something that looks like this, it hasn't been closed. That's just the farmer deciding he doesn't want people walking on his land again. Now, when you see stuff like that, I mean, we don't want to condone bad behaviour, but I wouldn't really think about it too much.
Anyway, what we did, we'll get to in a minute, but we just thought we'd just show you a couple of bits and talk about a couple of things that are kind of relevant, if you like, to this section. So the River Dower, it was only about 10, might have been 20 years ago now. There was a big kind of discussion whether or not the River Dower was actually big enough to justify the title of river, and whether it was a river or whether it was actually a stream. And it was decided, I think quite correctly, that it deserved the title of river. Now, it's about 4 miles long, and officially it starts at Temple Ewell, but there is a kind of section that goes up through the Alcombe Valley. And it was traditional. It was begun use in kind of Bronze Age times when it came out at the sea. And that was where Bronze Age man used to actually his settlement for when he was transferring materials or transporting materials to various different places. And there is still the Bronze Age boat in Dover Museum, which is a pretty cool thing in itself. You know, you sort of think of this boat, which is well over 1,000 years old, and it's still intact and it is still a boat. That's pretty cool. Obviously, then the Romans developed the entrance to the Dower and Dover port quite extensively. And there's actually been a large number of mills on the Dower. You know, the power of the water is that much. I think there were 8 corn mills and 5 water mills, you know, talk English. 8 corn mills, and one of them still exists and is a museum, and 5 paper mills. Which, if you think of the length of the Dower and the size of Dover, is quite phenomenal, large amount of mills on the water. And if you think each one is tapping that energy, that's pretty awesome. So the River Dower is cool. You can actually, there's a trail on it now. You can actually walk from Kersney all the way down to the town, where it actually now comes out through a culvert before it gets to the harbour.
Just talking about the corn mills as well, we actually went to the Crabble Corn Mill once because they had it was a cider festival.
Beer festival.
Beer and cider festival on. Now, if you do like a quick drink like I do, I had a great time. So if you ever are in that area and they've got the Crabble Corn Mill beer and cider festival on, I'd highly recommend going because it's great fun.
Excellent. Moving on to Coots, I think. We should Coot the picture next. We show the Coot picture.
I can show the Coot picture.
Indeed. Again, get a look at those feet. Yeah. Can you just imagine if, you know, that if you were a coot and the size of a bird that you normally see, and then having to manage these dirty, great thumping huge feet, you know, and you have to get your knee up and kind of stomp around. But they are really, really cool for walking across lilies, as I mentioned in the video. They're pretty phenomenal. But they're also good enough because coots, when they feed, they quite often will get things from the bottom of rivers and lakes, and they can actually dive sort of well over a meter, and it's been recorded up to 7 meters deep, which is quite awesome for a bird that, say, hasn't got webbed feet. And funny enough, they obviously just kind of like abandon themselves when they come back up, because they quite often come out of the water tail first, which is bonkers. But you can tell it's quite possible, maybe with this very significant kind of white stripe going up the head, which kind of almost gets to the top, it may be the origins of the phrase as bald as a coot, because, you know, coots aren't bald at all, which is kind of somewhat bizarre. The juvenile coots are brown, and they're also another bird, like robins, for example, that are extremely territorial, especially during the mating season. So keep an eye out for them, because they get really noisy, really, really squabbly. They've got quite a loud, prominent shriek when they do make a call.
You can't miss them.
You can't miss them.
Honestly, you can work them out just by hearing them. They're so loud.
And the only other bird that you might confuse them with is the moorhen. The moorhen is very similar, but it's smaller, and it's got a red stripe on the head and quite often red on the tail as well. But they're a really prominent bird, especially of our lakes and parklands. They don't seem to have any worries or fears about mankind. They just carry on and do their thing. But they are pretty cool birds. And just a little bit further about the gorse, the ones that Ross spoke about. They're a member of the pea family. So they have this very bright, vivid yellow flower, which, say, generally they flower from sort of like February around the sort of July time. But if you remember, before Christmas, when we were at Old Park Woods, they were in full flower in December. And as Ross said, it's temperature and it's weather and all the rest of it. They are another plant that's all over the place. But, you know, it's funny. I've always had this image of, if I was jumping out of a plane, you know, with a parachute, I wouldn't want to land on gorse, because it really is. It's got some really sharp spikes on it. It's definitely not a plant to mess with. But they're another one of those, bit like Mahonia, viburnum. In the winter, they are fantastic because they're so bright and full of cheer, especially on a drab day. So yeah, pretty cool plants.
Well, on to part 3, the final part.
Part 3, yes.
That one.
So we've just climbed over the fence. In fact, we've now climbed over 5 fences. About half a mile to a mile ago, after we finished the scramble that you showed you just now, there was a big footpath sign saying footpath is shut. It wasn't an official footpath. And because we had quite a scramble to get to that point and to turn around and go back up what we just scrambled down, we decided to continue on. As far as I'm aware, you have to legally shut footpaths. You can't just put up a sign that says footpath shut. But we didn't want to, if you like, cause any aggro if the farmer was looking. So we came through. So we've now rejoined an open footpath at the south end of the Kersney Abbey woods. And we're going to carry on now with our normal kind of broadcast. Still, simple life circle, just maybe causing a little bit of controversy.
So once you come through the gate at the top of the valley, when you come through, take a left, and this takes you back into Kersney Woods and back along the top.
So, we're in either Thorny Hill Wood or Stonehill Copse Wood, which is just above Kersney Abbey and the Ilkham Valley. It's an ancient woodland. Now, that means that the woods have been here since at least 1600 AD, which is 400 years, which is pretty amazing. Now, as you can see around me, there are sycamores, beeches, oaks, amongst others, but an awful lot of the trees are actually covered in ivy. Now, there's a real kind of should we, shouldn't we with ivy, because obviously if there's too much, it can do damage to the tree. And ultimately, as we've seen on this walk, the trees can fall over. But by the same token, the combination of trees with ivy on actually supports way, way more life than either could do on their own. So there is an argument where it's not doing the tree any serious damage to actually leave the ivy on the tree. And the other point of note is if you come back here in April, May, the floor of these woods will be blue. It's absolutely thick with bluebells. And bluebells, as we know and love, are fantastic. So enjoy woods, because as well as being old, they have that feel of ancient. And that's kind of really cool for our own health and well-being and connection. I can tell you more as to why that is. I woke up this morning with steaming headache. I had a couple of meetings I had to go to, and I felt muggy, I felt tired, I felt exhausted. And do you know what? This walk has been difficult in places, but I feel rejuvenated, I feel alive, I feel warm on a cold day. And you know, I can't ask much more for the world that I live in, or how good I feel right now, having been outside, compared to when I got up this morning.
Now, we're coming to the end of this outdoor activities guided walk. We've been rock climbing, we've been swimming, we've even been gorge walking, but we're now reaching the end. And there's two options you can take to get back to Kearsley Park and get back to Scotland Common. You can take the route on the right, which is where it's a zigzag path, which is easier walking, but it takes a little bit longer. Or you can take the route we're going to take, which is straight down Footpath. That's up to you, but we're going straight down.
So what we'd actually say in hindsight is, if you'd like to do the walk, if you leave out that middle section, it's a really, really cool walk. Do the Kearsley Loop. Follow the signs for the Kearsley Loop, which is relatively well signposted, but just look at the scenery around you. You know, it's not what you would kind of, unless you live in this area, it's not what you would expect of a Kent countryside. You know, it's more rugged than we normally tend to get. So just enjoy that.
And I will be going out and doing the Kearsley Loop and continuing from where we told you not to do the Kearsley Loop and filming it and giving that to you guys on the Facebook group. I will get that filmed and recorded and up onto the group in the next couple of weeks. So that'll be there for you all to use, unless you do fancy going gorge walking, rock climbing, swimming,
Tree
and walking,
yeah, scrambling,
abseiling,
bottom sliding.
The list goes on. It really does go on this walk. It was very entertaining at times.
It was challenging though. We have to admit though, I mean, there is a feeling of success when you manage to sort of like surmount some of these obstacles, but it's maybe not what we were expecting. But anyway,
got a question.
Whoa.
So, is the farmer allowed to put barbed wire fencing over a footpath? Legally, he's not.
Well, the footpath technically goes along the edge of the field, the other side of the barbed wire. So the farmer hasn't actually cut off the path, but what they haven't done is cleared the footpath which goes along the farmer's field. So we possibly were in the wrong to be in the field, but we couldn't have scrambled through, and we would have had to have pleaded something if the farmer had come out. So the farmer wasn't in the wrong in the barbed wire, but somebody who should have been. I mean, there's a responsibility, I think, actually with the council to keep the footpaths clear and walkable. So maybe that's one we need to actually sort of like check through further. But I suppose the other side of it is that going out and doing these walks is we can at least say, look, this is a fantastic walk, but just don't do it right now. So, you know, use the fact that we've scrambled through it, and actually we can say to you, do the Kearsley Loop. It's there for a reason, probably at the moment. They probably put that one in as a slightly shorter walk, purely and simply to keep people safe.
What is interesting with footpaths is if they aren't walked, but if they're not obviously walked for, I think it's a year to 2 years, the footpath actually then does get closed because it's not under regular use. And there is actually a job which I would absolutely love to do, and I haven't quite found it yet. It's not a very high paying job. It's not a very hard working job. You get paid to go and walk footpaths all day.
Well, if you had to take a hedge trimmer with you and clear them as you went, that'd be a pretty cool job, I think.
I think taking those trimmer, your arm would be a bit heavy by the end of it if you've walked all day and you've got those trimmer around. But you could take like some other bits, or you could take a map and write down what needs clearing.
Work out what needs seeing.
That's a job that I really like to do. I think it's quite fun.
I have to admit though, we've on several walks we've been on, and farmers quite often, and I'm not saying all farmers by any means, don't like footpaths going through fields, and some obviously more than others. But we've had several occasions where we've actually got lost because there's been no footpaths, and I don't quite get them. I mean, we've even argued with one or two farmers on occasions when the map quite clearly shows a footpath which they've been trying to stop people using. But it just seems to me, if the footpath is there, if it's well signposted, people will stay to the footpath and not wander around trying to find the other end of it. So we're kind of like, I don't know, maybe we're jaded, maybe we're prejudging, but we just thought, here we go, farmers. What can you say?
Typical country boys, eh?
Indeed.
Typical country
Look at
boys.
that. Time is moving on, isn't it?
It
We
is
were
getting
going to do a little section on ancient woodland, but we're absolutely sure that we'll have another opportunity to do that. So
how about we do a little segment? I'll go out and shoot the Kearsley Loop, and we'll do a little half segment at some point, and we'll carry on from where we left off on the Kearsley Loop and continue the ancient woodland.
certainly, I mean, yeah, if you've got time, but I was thinking we could put the ancient woodland into next week.
Yeah,
because it would be topical, and we'll do a section on ancient woodland.
well, you know what you've got to look forward to next week now, don't you?
Well, one of the things,
Of many,
as well as tit special.
Yes, we have got a tit special. But no, that does conclude this week's or this month's guided walk. We've got some exciting bits going on in the background at the moment, which really are going to benefit all of us greatly when we put them off. So be excited and be prepared because we've got some great plans and great ideas going on in the background.
But we're looking at constructing an app. We're not going to tell you any more at the moment, and that app will be included in the cost of being a member. We've been talking to one or two people, and we've got some exciting plans to actually increase the value of the Circle membership. So, but we're not going to tell you any more than that.
But that does conclude guided walk number 2, and the only one of the month. So it's that time of the show when we kind of bring everything to a close, and within that close, we ask you two guys, if you've got anyone you want to come along, bring them along to a show, and if they sign up, you get £5 off your membership
For each person.
For each person you bring along. So if you, for example, if you've brought 3 people with you, you don't have to pay any membership. Your membership is free because you've brought those 3 people and they've signed up. And we're calling this the community membership. And if you do know anyone that wants to come along, please feel free to get in touch with either of us, and we will get their email added to the list and get it sent out for guest shows. And we just think that is a brilliant offer because you're not only helping us give you better content, you're also helping yourself because you're going to get more for your money out of us. And with that, thank you very much for coming. I will pass over to Dad in just a second to give us some closing words, but we've really thoroughly enjoyed parts of that walk, and we thoroughly enjoyed presenting it to you tonight. And I think we've all had a great time. So, Dad.
Okay, yeah, I hope you enjoyed the snow video. I know it's self-praise, but you know, I was so pleased when we saw that after we put it together. So anyway, snow begins with S, sun. We were talking about the sun earlier. Be like the sun. And just spread a little love everywhere. And what I would just think, is there someone that you haven't spoken to in a while? Is there someone you haven't seen in a while? Or someone that you just have fallen out a little bit with? Wouldn't it be really cool? Send them a card or send them a text message, and just or think of something that that person has done that was really cool and really lovely, and just say, I was so pleased when this happened. This memory was fantastic. Just random acts of kindness. Thank you very much indeed. We're so looking forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. That was brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
See you later.
Yeah, well done. That was a really good one.